I am so excited to have Corey and Tiffany from Investor Life. They're in their home right now. So thank you for someone inviting us to your home, guys. You guys are in Edmonton, Alberta. How are you doing today?
Awesome. It's a beautiful sunny day, which we don't get often here in Edmonton. So we're super pumped.
Yeah, it's all good. I'm heading out on a dirt biking trip right away here tonight. So yeah, can't complain at all.
And I know you guys are taking off on a 5-day dirt biking trip. It's kind of neat because obviously this type of life, the investor life, as you mentioned a second ago, kind of off air, Tiffany, what it's been able to afford you to do, right? Like obviously the viewers right now that are watching the Real Estate Marathon, you know that there's a different background. So we had to pre-record this because both Corey and Tiffany are on their trip as this is going to be playing. But how neat is that? Like what real estate has afforded you allowed you to do? Yeah,
absolutely. The freedom that it gives is incomparable. It really is. It's tough to actually put it into words, but to be able to just take off and go when you need to, or be home when you need to for those that need you. I mean, yeah, it's awesome.
So a lot of things. Yes. And so for some of you that are watching right now and or listening, if you're listening to the marathon while you're in the car right now or on the treadmill, you guys know these faces and or know like have heard these voices. But for the few people that haven't, guys, like give us a little quick backstory on why did you start investing into real estate and how did you get involved in investing in real estate?
Our journey goes back like to 2003-ish, somewhere in there. You know, we had a little business we were running at the time, and we thought, we were kind of getting sick of it. We're running on that treadmill of life. And so we thought, what else can we do that's a little bit different? And actually, Tiffany's the brains behind the story because she started looking into different options. Real estate really struck her chord, and she started looking into it. And we went to seminars. We did we took
everything.
Coaching. We did
bought the
books, all that kind of stuff. We got into real estate investment in a big way. It took us a while to get going, though. Our first year and a half of learning, we didn't take any action. We were starting to get frustrated. Not much was happening. We didn't really have the money to do it ourselves.
We're like, why can everyone else do this, but we can't?
Yeah.
What's wrong with us?
So we started looking for partners, and we started advertising ourselves to partners and advertising the opportunities that we had. And next thing you know, once we did one, then we did two, and we ended up buying just over 100 properties within a 3-year period, and got into the game really big and did it full time. So that's kind of where we got started, and that was 16 years ago.
18 years ago.
18.
Well, I love how humble you guys are about it. I'm not sure if anyone caught that, but yes, Corey did say over 100 properties. Like, that's amazing. So first and foremost, congratulations. Like, that's huge. Now, we got to take it back, though. So you said you were looking for partners, and this is what I wanted you guys to speak about and go in depth about. Like, when you said partners, you were looking for joint venture partners when you guys started.
So for us, we had no choice. We had the luxury of having zero money. And so we had no choice but to look for partners to, bring that money side. We were willing to do the work. We had we had educated ourselves. We were driven, but we had no money. And in real estate, you kind of need a little bit of money to get going. So we had to find those partners. So we partnered with other people. They brought the financial side together. We brought the working side together, and we brought properties together for initially a 5 to 7 year period was the plan. Some of them we still hold, which is craziness. But 5 to 7 year period. And then at the end of the day, we would split profits 50-50 after they got their.
Perfect. I love it. I love the setup. So when you said working partner and you guys were kind of the ones that were doing the work, what does that mean? Like, were you guys like, let's talk about the first property and maybe the second property, right? As actual case studies. Like, were you building the home? Were you just doing renovations? What type of work was involved from your perspective? And then I definitely want to talk about how did you find the money? Because I'm sure that's what a lot of people want to know. But what was the working part of it?
Yeah, so there's a lot of work involved. Let's be very, very clear with that. So, the work started for us just doing the research and learning and educating ourselves. There was a lot of work involved with that. Secondly, going out and actually finding the properties, going out with the realtors, looking at for sale by owners, doing
Knowing
all of
how
those
to
sorts of
analyze
things,
them.
analyzing the properties, deciding which ones are good to buy, which ones aren't.
How much rent are we going to get? Like what actual rent? Not what, CMHC says or whatever, but what are the street rents going to actually get? What do we have to do to change this property? Like what paint color do we do? Do we get rid of the stove? Do we open a wall? Do we leave it? Like all of those things falls on your shoulders as the working partner. That's up to you to make sure that that property is being the best investment that it can be.
And for the most part, when we started, we were buying properties that we weren't building properties. We were buying properties that already existed, and we were doing light renovations. I'm not a renovation guy. Quite frankly, I hate renovations. So I learned that very quickly in our process. And we chose later on to buy different types of properties that didn't require that. But at the beginning, we did all of that work when it comes to renovating, and then finding the tenants, managing it, doing all of that. We hired property managers. We did it ourselves. We did many different ways through that. So all of that stuff is included. And then at the end, it comes to selling too. The whole selling process, we were the ones doing all of that.
I'm so glad that you mentioned about that. Look, it does take a lot of work, right? Like from finding the tenants, finding the deal in itself is, you might need to go through, I don't know how many deals you probably went through until you actually got the first one done. Like, do you remember how many deals you have to maybe pitch to people?
Oh, well, okay. Deals to get like from sellers, I would say it was probably 30 or 40 deals to actually talk to joint venture partners and actually get our first yes. I would venture to guess it was around 40 or 50 of fails. Oh, no, you suck. That's what we heard when people said no, they didn't want to partner with us, before we finally get our first partner to say yes. And then after that, it just got a whole lot easier.
So, and for anybody who's watching or listening right now, if you ask 3 people and you come to any one of us and say, well, 3 people said, no, I guess this doesn't work. Please, rewind a second. You know what I mean? When you can watch this recording, 40 to 50 people it took. And you heard that many no's before you actually got the first one done. Now, in terms of the money aspect, so how did you actually go out and ask people? How did you raise that first, for that first deal? How did you raise the money?
So for us, do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah. So we had a little guy at home. He was 3 years old-ish. And so we were one of us had to stay home. At the time, our area was something that a lot of investors wanted into. And so we knew that we had to market it to areas that were more expensive than us. So I would go out to Toronto and Corey would go out to Vancouver. And we would go to real estate meetups and, we would just talk to people and tell them about Edmonton and tell them why we thought it was such a great investment, and give them some ideas and some case studies and that sort of thing, and just literally started creating relationships with people, going out there and becoming an expert. When people had questions, we answered them, and that's how it all begins.
And networking. Network. That's what we did. Network. That's what we did, is we just literally talked to people. Yeah. And quite frankly, that is not my strong suit. I especially back 15 years ago, I was not the type of person that felt comfortable starting conversations with other people. So, but we pushed it. Yeah. And we kind of stepped out of that comfort zone, and we got her done. So
now, do you always, till this day, set it up as a 50-50? How does that kind of go? To go right into the micro of a joint venture deal, how do you determine the percentage that you as a working partner or you as a money partner would take? How does that actually, the process of that, how does that look?
So, yeah, for the most part, I would say vast majority of ours were 50-50. But to be honest with you, when we were first starting out, we didn't have the credibility. And so some of our first ones, in fact, our first, I don't know if he was our first. No,
our very first
one of our first ones, joint venture partners, kind of came to us and said, hey, listen, guys, I want to buy 10 to 15 properties and I want to do it in the next few months and I want to joint venture with you, but I want a higher percentage. And I don't want to just do 50-50. And he wanted 2/3. So he wanted 66%. So we tell this story all the time that, we at first were like, I don't know if we want to do that. And then we slapped ourselves in the face and said, why wouldn't we do this?
Hello?
Because this jumps us from 5 properties that we had up to 20 properties within a few months. And that gave us that credibility that then we could ask for the 50%, no problem.
And the 33% is, anybody who knows, better than 0, right? And you're just getting your foot in the door. You're getting the experience and the credibility to get more. Paperwork. How does that kind of look? Like, do you guys have your own joint venture agreements? Do you just draw them out at the lawyers? Like, how does that all kind of look?
So we started off with, one from a lawyer. So that was, a standard kind of joint venture agreement. Usually costs you between $2,500 and $3,500 ish. So we had one of those, and then we just would edit it. And, as we went along in our experience, we'd be like, oh, we should have added that in, or take this out, or that's not necessary. And then with each joint venture partner, because what you're really doing is you're becoming an asset to them. You're their gopher, really. And so it was like, what do you need? Okay, Jas, like, are you looking for cash flow? Or are you looking for more, like long-term stuff so that your kids have an education fund? So depending on what people wanted, we would tailor our agreements to them. So then we would edit them up. And so now we've got, a document that has been edited over the last 100 deals. Yeah. So, but generally speaking, it is a legal agreement. It is a contract. You both sign it. It can be registered on title in some cases, depending on where you live. But it is a legal contract that you're both bound to.
Now, exit strategies. I know you as and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but from a macro thesis and like your style of investing is buying and holding. But when you're working with other joint venture partners, do you build in like okay, year 3 we can sell or refinance, or is it always a 5-year term? What's kind of the terms around the exit strategies?
So,
great question.
Yeah, very good question. Our joint venture agreement stated at the beginning that once the property went up 25% in value, at that point, the discussion for selling could open. We would, at that point, once we made some money on that property, then we could start discussing selling.
Or a 5-year term, whichever came first.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah. And so some of those we sold once we hit that mark. And some of them we refinanced and bought out our partners. And some of them our partners wanted to keep them and they bought us out. So there's a lot of different ways to get out of it. And some of them, and actually quite a few of them, we still have today.
Yeah. So a 5-year plan, 5 to 7-year plan turned into, 15, 16 years at this point with some of those properties and partners. Yeah.
I love that. Like, I like to think of my real estate kind of in 10-year windows as well, because here in the greater Toronto area, we know that in the last 100 years, every decade values have doubled on average. And so I still kind of like to look at it at 10 years. So I like what you mentioned there, Tiff, that 5 to 7 years, that's a good time, right? Because sometimes partnerships don't work. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about that. Is there some stories, maybe a story that kind of sticks in your mind that where maybe it didn't work? And how did you get over that? Like where maybe a joint venture partner didn't work?
So I love this topic because, when we first started, especially me though, I had a harder time going to people. I felt like I was, a loser asking for money and begging. I just had a hard time with it from a pride perspective maybe, but when we first started talking to people, I pretty much would have taken anyone's money. You're gonna agree to partner with me? All right, I'm in, but thank goodness pretty early on I got a really tough lesson. I had a lady that kind of came at me like really brutally and just like tore me apart. And I sat there and I'm, well, we could try this, or what about that, or we would do this for you, or and I just kind of try. And then all of a sudden, this was really late at night. I was in Toronto by myself. My kid was back home with no story time from, I just was grouchy by that point. And I kind of just said to her, you know what, listen, if you don't do this with me, someone else is going to. So you know what? It's up to you, but I'm kind of done here. Like, I don't need to get interrogated anymore. Like, I kind of just set it out and was like, whatever.
It was probably very freeing in that sense, right, Tiff? Like I like to say, like in and around like business and sales, to let the new wardrobe in, you got to get rid of the old clothes, right?
Totally, yeah. And it was really freeing. But the funny part was that she shifted, and immediately it was like she started chasing me after that.
Love it.
But what I learned from that was I was not willing to take any partner, because I thought to myself after I left that night, if I had agreed to partner with her, my life would have been hell.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I like to enjoy my life. So, yeah. Did we have any partnerships that went wrong or bad? No, but there's specific reasons why. For one, we interviewed them as much as they interview us. For two, we have paperwork, and always everything gets put in writing. We never leave anything verbal. Every conversation gets an email in reply saying, this was my understanding. Did you understand anything different? So there's things you can do. And in all of our partnerships, we haven't had that, but I think communication is really, the big reason why.
For everyone that's watching and listening right now, I'm sure that you get a good understanding with all the speakers that we've had on today and that we'll be having on in the later part of the evening today, that everyone thinks about investing as a business. And, Tiff, you mentioned that everything's emailed, it's documented, it's systematized. Like, I'm sure for the first couple, it was kind of willy-nilly, like, okay, we could do it on a napkin at Tim Hortons and stuff. And then you figured out some type of system. Going back to the interviewing, I found that very interesting because, like, is there 1 or 2, 3, 4 maybe hot questions or things you're looking for when you're interviewing a possible joint venture partner?
I mean, number one thing that we actually look for is, why are they wanting to do this? Why are they to invest in real estate? What is their why? What is their end goal?
Can we meet that for them?
And if we are kind of on the same page as far as, okay, they're doing this because they want to better their life, they want to pay for this in the future, pay for that, or whatever it might be. If we understand the end goal and we feel that the investments we can bring to them can help them get there, that's really what we're trying to determine when we're talking to a financial partner.
And for me, it's very much, I have to have that they're not dependent on the income, and they're not giving me every last penny, because I can't take that kind of pressure. I need them to, be able to lose that money. Not that they ever have, but I just couldn't take that kind of pressure. So yeah.
What would you say to somebody who said, you have to have your own money to invest into real estate? You guys have done it the way that I want people to really get the understanding, like 100 properties. Like, I hope everyone just gets one. Like, I hear it all the time. I want to get 100 doors. I want to get 700 doors and 10,000. And that's great. But if everybody just got one, I think that we would all agree that could change someone's life. But then there's a lot of people that are watching and listening right now that said, this stuff doesn't work, or you actually have to have your money. What would you say to those people?
Absolutely not true. You can do it. Hey, you know what? If we can do it, we were young, we were inexperienced, we had okay credit, and we had no money. And we bought 100 properties. And, if we can do it, anybody can do it. It's just a matter of, again, like you talked about, putting in the systems, following a system, networking with the right people, and maybe hiring a coach that can actually direct you towards your goals and focus you to what you need to do next. And that's really the important part.
Thank you so much, Corey and Tiffany, for doing this with us. Everyone who's watching and listening, you will get all their contact info in terms of getting in touch with them. They're not only still investing, but now they're taking it to the next level and educating and sharing their story that much more and helping others fulfill their dreams in investing in real estate. So thank you for that. But I want you to leave our marathoners with one tip, and it could come from either a mindset perspective, an actual tactical when it comes to joint ventures. Please, the floor is yours. Leave them with a tip.
Okay, I got one. Yeah. I got one. Focus on one property. That would be my tip, because a lot of people, even us, when we first started, we saw people with 10, 20, 30 properties, and we wanted to do 10, 20, 30 properties. And our wheels were spinning, and we were a year in and we hadn't done anything yet. And we were told by somebody, just do one. And once we did the one, we then got it and we understood it.
Next one.
And then you do the next
make
one.
That mountain shrink.
Exactly. And so if I was going to give anybody a piece of advice, just focus on your next property, and that's it.
Thank you so much for allowing us in your home. And I hope you had an amazing, amazing trip when you guys go dirt biking. Thank you once again, guys.
Thanks for everything you guys do for investors. You're amazing. We watch you all the time. So keep going, keep rolling.